Hello, everyone. I think the room is a little quiet. We're talking about art. Hello, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. We needed that energy. Welcome to the transformative power of art in a polarized world. I am Shudufhadzo Musida, and I'm honored to introduce this discussion. Throughout history, art has served as a universal language, capable of reaching where words cannot. From music and performance to visual and digital expression, creative works have offered spaces for healing, empathy, and collective understanding. Today, we'll be exploring how we can harness this potential to reconnect in an era of political, digital, and territorial division. What role can art play in shaping the conversations, decisions, and spaces that define our communities and future cities today? I'm joined by incredible panelists today. We have Alvise Casellati, founder and music director of Opera Italiana is in the Air. We also have Christopher Coritsidis, founder and CEO of Opus One Foundation. And we also have Nadine Abdel Ghaffar, founder and CEO of Arte d'Egypte. Pardon, French is not my first language. I'm going to start with you, Maestro. You bring out opera out of traditional concert halls into public spaces to make it a lot more accessible. How have you seen music cut through cultural and political divisions to create shared moments of connection?
No, and New York is the right place to speak about that because when we gathered the orchestra, the idea was Italian opera has been pop music, and now opera is perceived to be something belonging to the elite, and it's not. And the perfect test is exactly what's going to happen in 2 days. We're performing in Central Park at 5:30 p.m. at the Nambour Benchel, and I wanted to give you an opportunity for everyone to attend, so without tickets. So it's something that is supposed to be inclusive. So when you see in the orchestra all possible people from all over the world, and then you hear also singers from all over the world singing in Italian, but still our language is so expressive that people are able to understand what's going on regardless of understanding Italian. And it's so passionate that they realize that it's pop music because people usually arrive, they're invited. You don't need an invitation, you show up. And some people do not even know, they listen to the music, they just come there. And then you see all of a sudden a big crowd and people don't leave, they don't want to leave. So it goes to the power of the communication and to music as something different from other art forms, from the visual art forms, because it's invisible. The power of music into your heart, you cry. I mean, in opera, especially Puccini, when you hear this kind of operas, people cry because they're hit by a big emotion, because the geniuses of the past are able to do that. But I think it's also very important for us to also bring the new generation in, and we do a program where we're bringing a composer, a little Mozart, a composer from 11 to 18 years old. They go to Juilliard, pre-college, and I always award the opportunity to one composer, young composer, to be premiered in Central Park. So we will have also that. We have the geniuses of the past and the young geniuses of the present. And so, when you see that all the world speaks with one language, with one music, and all together, it's a power that can go anywhere and speaks to everybody's heart. The language is one, and it's music, and it's passion, and it's our common roots. And that's why it goes beyond any political divide ideas. When people are together, there is no Palestine, no Israel, there is no Russia, no Ukraine. They're all singing together in music. They don't know this difference. We're there for the music and to give emotions to people. So it doesn't matter where we come from. Our goal is just one, to provide emotion, to heal the soul, which is something that goes beyond the educational power of music. We're also bringing in this project, Opera Italiana is in the Air, the rising voices from Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Hospital. So imagine when music is as the highest possible mission, is to heal your soul. There are people who are able to go through cancer to win over cancer. And as part of their education, there's a music therapy. They sing in a choir. So I'm bringing out the choir to Central Park and they're singing the US national anthem. So it's this goes to say that whether you know it or not, when you listen to a piece of music, then you stop exactly to listen to the music that you need in that particular moment because your soul needs that to heal. And that's a process you do without even consciously knowing what you're doing, but every one of you does that. And I can only invite you to hear, if you have not gone to Met Opera, to come to the Opera Italiana is in the air. We have parts of the Metropolitan Opera musicians in the first rows, but you see all the young people from Juilliard Manhattan School of Music behind. So it's a way to cheer life and music and all the greatest values on earth. And so you're all invited to attend on Wednesday at 5:30 p.m.
There you have it.
I'll be there.
I think something that you spoke about was accessibility, but also bridging the gap between the older generation and the younger generation. I mean, if you look back to the 90s, you had people like Sir Bob Geldof, Michael Jackson, Quincy Jones, and Lionel Richie using We Are the World to unite everyone. You didn't have to speak the language in order to understand what they were trying to communicate. And in what you're saying right now, in making it a lot more accessible, you are bridging the gap between how we conversate with one another, even if we don't speak the same language. And it actually brings me to my question for you, Christopher. You work to expand access to education via the arts globally. How do you see arts education, not just shaping individuals, but communities as well, the resilience of communities as well, just touching on what Maestro said?
For sure, and I couldn't agree more with music being a universal language, and it's something that, for me as a, I guess, recovering musician, and bringing into Opus One is something that we're very much adopting and systematizing through our work. I think everyone on this panel and perhaps everyone in this room would agree that education is really fundamental when we have conversations around human progress. And the way that the arts are so powerful in an education setting is that they unlock creativity, they unlock communication, they unlock critical thinking, which are integral to getting these skills that fuel both innovation and social mobility. So for us at Opus One Foundation, we see the arts as being education's greatest equalizer. And we're always advocating for STEAM education programs versus STEM programs. Yes, I love the acronym. So it's, for us, when you are taking out the arts from education settings, removing that A, we know that children are being done a great disservice, that they're less likely to perform as high as they could in subjects of the sciences, technology, engineering, and mathematics, but they're also being handicapped both socially, mentally, I'd say even physically. So our mission as an organization is really to embed arts programs in education institutions and programs worldwide, because the results speak for themselves. We know that when you have arts embedded and integrated into education programs, that you have 78% more children showing up to school every day. You are seeing an increase in graduation rates by 82%. And we are also seeing that students are 20% more likely to move on to higher education. And for us, our education programs primarily are operating in marginalized communities around the world. So that's a huge difference. And thank you. Thank you. So to wrap up the point about the importance of the arts in education, how access to that leads to so much more, is that within these marginalized communities and embedding access to arts in schools, with this child who perhaps is learning music or is partaking in an arts class, and then that gives them access to, let's say, university, which in turn leads to better paying jobs. And then at the community level, what does that look like? It looks like a stronger society. It looks like a more prosperous and thriving community in that region. So.
And I'm really glad that you touched on the marginalized communities, because sometimes arts can seem inaccessible for a child who's in Africa, or a child who has never been exposed to it in this way. I'm just curious, what do you think is missing from how we invest in art right now to make it more accessible? Because let's say you've never heard of a Juilliard, but you're so talented, but there's no one to nurture that. How do we invest in a sustainable way to make sure that it's not only reserved for the few, and when we're speaking this common language as a global community, that it actually includes the global community.
Absolutely. And I think, what we often forget with the arts is that they are a force multiplier in many ways. That, the way we think of the arts is really as a form of technology, in the sense that it equips everyone with the tools that they need for equitable opportunities and also for long-term prosperity. So I think, with education, it's the first step for everything, right? In terms of impact and just access to opportunities and how we build our lives. So where we need to invest first and foremost, most of our resources are arts and education settings. That's where it begins, but it's not the only step. So for us as an organization, I think just what we're here to preach today is that you have to take that next step. And the next step really is investing in the creative economy, because now you're in a full cycle, right? So what we're doing as an organization, and one of our programs here that's based in the United States, Everyone is an Artist, is really focusing on the arts as a force multiplier for, let's say, cultural workers with disabilities. Something that we've discovered at Opus One is that in the United States, the arts and culture economy contributes about $1.2 trillion annually. Yeah, it's a big number. And employs about 5 million people. And only 1% of that population is represented by people with disabilities, which is huge. So for us, we were thinking, well, there's obviously systemic barriers here, but on the flip side of that, there are great opportunities for investment. So the opportunity is, through our research and what we learned, is that for every dollar invested in disabled arts or disabled artists, there's a return of $3.50 to $5 per individual. So for everyone here in finance, that's the, we'll speak a common language, that's a net return about 250% to 400%, which is massive. And then from the macro micro of it all, at the individual level, when you're investing that dollar, that translates to about $18,000 in additional income per cultural worker with disabilities over a 5-year cycle. And then where it gets really interesting is then at the macro level, we're looking at $925 in new tax revenues, which ripples out into our entire economy. So for those maybe here who are not big fans of the arts, I'm sure you're a big fan of public schooling, strong infrastructure, security, and all these benefits that we have from living in a developed economy that, whether you know it or not, the arts are very much contributing to. So the more so we invest in the arts, the stronger our society and our economy becomes, especially for marginalized communities.
No, that's incredible. And as I move over to you as well, Nadine, she was telling us backstage how she is curating art at the bottom of the pyramids. And as I'm listening, I'm just thinking about how we reshape history by understanding history in itself in order to carve a new way forward, especially through the arts. And something you're talking about is that you're a very visual person. So how do you explain this incredible phenomenon that you're doing in Egypt right now to the world? And as I said, you work in contemporary places or art places in Egypt. And how does you having that idea to go to the minister and say, I want to do this at the bottom of the pyramids, basically shape the way people relate to it? Because art, visual art specifically, can take different journeys and take people to different places as they look at it. But you speak about how you work with archaeologists and artists in order to curate something that also celebrates history in as much as it's painting the picture forward.
Yes, so basically that's true. I was the crazy girl that went after 4,000 years and told the minister, I'm taking over the pyramids with contemporary art. International artists. But building on what we are all saying is that this is very important, and it's a very important message. And I think coming from the Middle East and Africa was a bigger challenge, because I mean, in the US, things are more developed, so there's more awareness. In Italy or Europe also, but in Egypt, there's no government funding. I'm literally doing this from scratch. And on the other hand, the private sector, also financial sector, does not understand the value of culture. So it's not just art. So we are actually pairing art and music, and getting away from the white cube as you are doing, and creating spaces, public spaces where anyone can come and understand and interact with this food for soul. And at the end of the day, art is the language of love. It's a non-confrontational tool, especially in a polarized world. We have the participation of Maestro Pistoletto this year. Some of you might know him. He's nominated for Nobel Peace Prize. He's a 92-year-old Italian artist, and all of his philosophy is on the ancient Egyptian philosophy. And this idea of the afterlife and what you have to do as an impact in the life you are in, and how this will continue infinitely. So he has those two polars, or the infinite sign, but he added a third paradise, which is what we all want, is a shared humanity, a place where we can all meet and discuss our similarities versus our differences. That at the end of the day, we're all humans. Whether we're black, white, green, yellow, it doesn't matter. And I think this is very important. So our exhibitions are visited by 1 million people every year. So it is open on the 11th of November to the 7th of December. You're welcome to follow Art d'Egypte and come. And anyone can access, also no tickets, free of charge. We also have a program with the UNESCO of young boys and girls from local universities that we have created a job for them as art guides, so they get honorarium. So this is also job creation and sustainability, because these young people will lead Egypt one day. And of course, again, just to give you context, in Egypt you don't have a museum of contemporary art. You don't have patrons like the US. So all of this was a whole movement that was done from scratch to educate the educated and the rich, and to educate the population, and to have art in public spaces in the heart of downtown Cairo. So we have more than one initiative. And you have schools and universities that come, and these young people interact with the other, because also being secluded and not knowing the other and not conversing, again, having a universal language. So any cultural initiative is universal. It goes back to the roots of us being humans. We all have the same emotions. We all have the same needs at the end of the day. So this, for me, I think, has created an incredible impact and goes viral every year. Of course, having a beautiful installation in front of the pyramids is also... and I think we have the pharaohs on our side. They're happy, so it's fine. Actually, when COVID happened, that was the first edition. And I went crazy. I'm like, okay, so this must be, you know, the curse of the pharaohs. They're unhappy with that. And then the great archaeologist, Dr. Zahi Hawass, who's actually very known in the US, told me, don't worry, this shall pass. Look at the pyramids. They've survived wars, pandemics, and they still stand tall, as will humanity. It will prevail. So I think it's also a message of peace to humanity.
No, all your work is incredible. And I think what I'm getting from this conversation is making art as accessible as possible, so people can partake in this conversation as well. And in the spirit of partaking in this conversation, I want to take two, or maybe one or two, looking at the time, question from the audience to any of our panelists before we close out, please. So if you have any questions, please do send them through. So we have a question from the audience, and it is, in an era where AI-generated artworks are becoming more prevalent, how should we understand and assess authenticity? Do you see AI as enhancing human creativity or as a challenge?
That's for me.
I think for you, because you're actually telling us about AI.
Well, actually, last year was the first year that we had introduced 2 AI artists. One is actually Egyptian American, Hassan Ragab, sorry for the mic. And the other one is a Saudi female artist. And it's incredible because, you know, at the beginning, I was also a bit scared. So AI, I have, of course, reservations, but as anything in the world, I think it should be controlled to a certain extent, and then one day people will understand what's right from wrong. But actually, so many things come out of AI, and it's the future. So we cannot really stop that. I think we should use it to our benefit and maybe help other people. So the two artworks were incredible, as I showed you on our catalog. It's actually the first reaction of anyone that goes to the pyramids is, oh my God, it's so close to the houses. I mean, we always thought that the pyramids is in the desert, but in reality, you look at the pyramids and then you see zillions of houses right across from the pyramids. So he kind of, you know, he's creating these questions through that. So he has the pyramids and all these houses inside the pyramids. So, so it's actually a way of also questioning.
On the other hand, in performing arts, I think you can say that you cannot replace, you cannot have a robot conducting. You cannot have, it's a little difficult. Now there is the Whitney Houston, right? That they are creating something with the AI, so it is a powerful tool to enhance creativity. I would ask the AI, what would have Mozart composed today if he had evolved through all over these years and living to today's times? There are questions that maybe not even AI can answer.
Have you tried asking? Have you tried asking?
It's kind of difficult to get an answer for that, but it's as everything can be used for the benefit of the people.
Exactly.
And so it has nothing negative. In the arts, I think you cannot substitute the soul. The soul of an artist is unique. We are unique, and performers are. So that's the only thing that you cannot replace. But I would never talk about AI replacing.
No, never.
I would always talk about, you know, when like online people were saying now books will disappear because now you read everything online. It is not true. So.
No. But it's true that it helps fast track a lot of things. So when we, at the beginning, the digital world, Instagram, all of that, it does connect people from different continents. Some people cannot travel. So for us, it is very important. We also have an open platform. Our YouTube channel, Art d'Egypte Official, has all the public lectures. We do public lectures. So we get people from Harvard in Egypt to give a lecture to the public for free. And this gives access to people that cannot be like you in a room, but to anyone. And again, it's a tool. That's why it does not substitute. It's just a tool.
I think it relates to access in this conversation we've been having, right? And this idea that everyone is an artist. So I like to be a conservative optimist around AI in the art space. I think it will unlock opportunities for everyone to lean in more so to the creativity, where you don't have to necessarily be a trained artist, but through technology, you'll be able to tap into that a lot more easily. So I'm personally excited about it.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for the question. We've run out of time, but I think that was a great way to end the conversation with a forward-looking perspective with everything that's changing around the world. And thank you so much for reminding us that art is the one common language that we have as a human race that connects and brings people together instead of dividing them. So thank you so much to you for joining us.
Thank you.